Hi, good afternoon. My name is WyattFarmer and I am a senior at E3 Civic High. This is my POL, which stands for Presentation of Learning. So basically what this is going to sum up my last 4 years of academic, social, emotional growth, everything that you can think of, just encapsulating my entire high school experience. So without further ado. So a little bit about me. My full name is Wyatt Elliott McFarland Farmer. I have two middle names, which is kind of fun. I was born and will die at some point. I live with my brother and my mother. They're kind of my little unit. That's my mom right there. And then my older brother, Eddie. Some of my hobbies are rock climbing, bass guitar, science. I like to paint, model building, cooking, just all sorts of things. Over the last 4 years, I've done a little bit of a lot of stuff. So these are just some pictures of me. That's me on my 4th birthday. Right there. I don't remember who that kid is, but he seems like fun. So, what is high school? So this whole presentation is about the 4 years of high school, and to answer that, you gotta know what high school is. And so for me, what high school is best represented in movies and TV, because that's what I had the most experience with in middle school. So, based on movies and TV, you have this certain conception of high school. You know, you got a lot of dancing, you got a lot of singing. It's very cheery. A lot of the stuff that I watched was specifically from the 80s and 90s, so there's a lot of mullets, a lot of weird hairstyles going on, and you know, a lot of comical situations that you get into. So the kind of thesis statement that I'm answering here is, how accurate are these expectations for your high school experience? So comparing and contrasting. What's true and what's not? Starting with freshman year. This is me in freshman year, and also down there. So we had a lot of stuff that happened in freshman year, and academically, I'm just going to be upfront and say that I didn't focus on the academics as much, because freshman year is, you know, you're 14 years old, you're changing schools, you're changing groups, you're meeting a bunch of new people. You know, when I look back and remember the formative experiences from that year, it's not really mostly academic stuff, it's mostly all the people that I met and things like that. Like there's Adrian and George and a couple other people who have become my good friends over the years. And you definitely remember more of that stuff. So, with that being said, that year we had the Cold Calling Project and the PTSD Project, were a couple different just interesting areas that we dove into. Specifically, the PTSD Project was really interesting and fun topic to unpack, considering that there's a lot of talk about PTSD both in relation to, you know, soldiers and veterans, and as well as people that go through traumatic experiences and just daily life. And I thought that one was really fun to do. That was with Miss Hazlett in freshman year. And then I also had biology with Mr. Newman, which was a class that I really enjoyed, and I had Mandarin, actually, with Mr. Lamb. So our language options were Spanish and Mandarin, and I picked Mandarin because I had tried Spanish in middle school and cannot speak Spanish. So we tried Mandarin, and that ended up taking me to a couple of interesting places. In terms of social growth, a lot of it was about becoming independent, becoming your own person. You know, it's much more intrinsic, much more from your inside, like finding that thing that drives you. So that was definitely a lot of growth in that area. And the things that I was challenged with was things like fitting in, being motivated, and having my own identity. Kind of just navigating the landscape and figuring out what all of this was about. I also started asking myself this question down at the bottom, which is, what do I want to do? Because, you know, high school, you start talking about college, you start preparing yourself for stuff. When you're in elementary and middle school, you know, you might have some idea of what you wanted to do. Like, I would have a new thing that I wanted to do every week. I wanted to be an astronaut and a fireman and like a chef and all that. But now you start have to really specializing and focusing on something, and definitely experimenting with different things. So, speaking of experimenting, summer of freshman year I actually went to China. So that is one of the interesting places that Mandarin took me. So we went to Guilin, China for 2 weeks, which is in the southern part of China. And this was over the summer, so it was hot and humid. I learned some more Mandarin in China, for sure. Definitely immersion is the best way to learn a language. Being in the country, speaking with native speakers, having to speak Mandarin and not having another option, that's the way to learn it. Got to meet a lot of people from China. This is my little Chinese family here. We got to stay with family for a couple of nights, and they were super fun and interesting, even though we could communicate only about like the most basic things. And also, bartering was super interesting. That's just kind of a cultural difference. In China, when they say something is like 5 yuan, that price is highly variable based on a lot of things. So I got some experience with bartering using this phrase, which is tai gui le, which means too expensive. Basically, you just say that like 90 times until the price goes down. Yeah. So based on these categories that we've established for high school movies and what high school is going to be, Here's my overall grade for freshman year. These are not academic grades, but more personal things. Freshman year, there were no dance numbers. There was a lot of comical things going on. There were some somewhat snarky friends. I met some new people, building up my social group. In terms of mullet, I mean, look at that. That was crazy. I had crazy long hair in freshman year, so that's going to get a B+. The closest high school movie analogy is 2005 Sky High. Moving on to sophomore year, we had a couple more projects. Sophomore year is an interesting time, for sure, because you're kind of getting over the initial awkwardness of freshman year, and you're really hitting your stride and figuring a lot of stuff out. For me, I had math with Mr. Harris, which was actually, I had one math class initially that I didn't really mesh with, and then I figured out, like, hey, I want to be working a little bit harder on math, challenging myself a little bit more. So I ended up going to a different math class, and Mr. Harris was a great math teacher. He totally worked us, so that was an interesting decision. So we also had the Global Goals Project, which was kind of our overarching topic for the entire year, and that was talked about universal education and refugee assistance. So those are my two topics that I kind of championed. We talked a lot about how education is important for lifting developing countries out of poverty, how it's a fantastic investment for developing countries, and we talked about how, I think sophomore year was 2015-16, so that was like right in the height of this global refugee crisis of just like migrant populations and people moving into different places. And we were coming up with a lot of solutions and ideas for how we should manage that process, which was definitely a really interesting and topical thing to be talking about. Also, during that year, I did biotech with Mrs. Hosford, which was another topic that was a lot of fun to me. I didn't understand a ton of it initially, and that one definitely took a lot more like thinking, but I ended up really enjoying the class, and that'll come up later. In terms of kind of experimenting with different stuff, I interned at Balboa Park at the Science Center. I checked tickets and got to like service the exhibits. And you could hang out with kids, but I'm not really a kids person, which is one of the things that I learned about myself. I started doing music this year, so I started playing bass guitar, and that ended up being a ton of fun to me. I went to a UCSD program called Cosmos, which we'll talk about a little more, and then I had a bunch of challenges with all of this new stuff going on. Balancing music in school, challenging myself in math and science, and getting different experiences out in the world. Those are pretty much my goals for this year and the things that I think I ended up remembering the most. So, moving forward, I did a ton of music in sophomore year. So I joined orchestra because I didn't want to take drama, and that was the other elective option. So I auditioned for bass because this guy, Civic, is way better at guitar than me. Both of us played guitar in middle school, but he's amazing. And I knew that I wanted to play a guitar-like instrument, so I auditioned for bass instead, which is just a big guitar. So I ended up loving it, though. I really enjoyed bass and orchestra in general. I had a lot of fun with it, and so over the summer I got an internship as an audio engineer with some of the same people, some of the contacts that I made at Balboa Park. So that ended up being a ton of fun for me. I got to manage all of these cables. I got a lot better than that. Those are all tangled up, but they get better. They get a lot better. And also that same summer, I got this fantastic opportunity to go to UCSD for a summer program called Cosmos. So basically what Cosmos is a couple weeks where you live on campus in the dorms and get organized based on your interests, and kind of, it's like pseudo-college classes. And it just kind of gets you acclimated and lets you experience the campus. It was an incredible resource for me. I'm really happy that I got to do it. I attended for music, because at the time that was what I was super passionate about, and I got to combine these different disciplines. And this made me interested in UCSD as an option. And when I was in middle school, I had heard of UCSD kind of as like the crazy, super fancy, like smart people college, and I thought I was more of an SDSU kid. But this definitely opened up that possibility for me, because I really not to put down SDSU, by the way, I'm sorry about that, but this opened up this possibility for me that I didn't really think of myself as being ready for. So I really enjoyed that experience. So overall for sophomore year, there was a lot more dance numbers. I was in orchestra, which doesn't have a lot of dancing, but you do have music. In terms of social groups and my friends and everything, definitely got built up a little more. You know people for a couple years, and mullet peaked in sophomore year. I mean, look at this. It's ridiculous. So mullet gets an A+. The closest movie analogy is Lethal Weapon 2, which is not a movie about high school, but Mel Gibson has fantastic hair, and I feel like it fits. So moving on. Junior year, I do even more music. So at this point, I'm just a music guy. I've totally identified in that way. So I become an accompanist for the show choir, which basically means that I accompany the choir and play live music to the choir singing. And I learned more about audio engineering. I feel like that's the area of music that I really start getting invested in. I have chemistry with Miss Gaines. Chemistry, I like science a lot. I loved biotech and medical biology. Chemistry was definitely a challenge for me though. Chemistry has a lot of math and a lot of like heady stuff in it, which is not my strong suit. So chemistry was a struggle, but I think it was a good struggle. I have philosophy with Dr. Chowdhury. Philosophy was awesome. I really enjoyed philosophy. It put words to a lot of concepts that I had floating around in my head before and introduced me to like different worldviews. I love taking philosophy. If I got to design like a high school curriculum from the ground up, I feel like everyone should take philosophy. This year also Mr. Lay leaves, who was my Mandarin teacher, my guy. So goodbye to him, but he's on doing other great stuff now. Challenges this year, definitely chemistry. Also with social life, kind of balancing all that stuff. This year, junior year, they say is like one of your hardest academic years of high school because you have a lot to do to get you prepared for colleges in senior year. So this year I was working on the SAT a lot. First time I took the SAT, I definitely wasn't really prepared for it. I didn't do great, but I wanted to do a lot better, especially because I had just gotten like a taste of UCSD and I was definitely going for it. So I ended up bunkering down and studying a lot more and taking the SAT again and getting a respectable score. So that was a lot of like challenges and growth for me. Maybe the biggest growth though, I did cut my hair, finally. And so things are going really well in junior year for me. This is a crux for me personally, because this year I feel like I can really coast and do what I'm doing, especially in terms of music. I feel very comfortable. I feel like I'm like finally getting it. When you're doing a thing, a couple years, in this case, it's 3 years of high school, I'm really getting it. So for me, that started approaching a turning point. Do we roll with this or do we try and do something different? Do we change stuff up? So that year, I was in a company as for show choir. So you play backing music, you give cues to the choir. The benefit of having a live band with the choir is that if the choir messes something up, then the band can kind of compensate for it, and we can keep time with one another. If you have a track, just like a CD playing, and then the choir messes something up, it's just like the whole thing's messed up. But so we have to communicate a lot. So that was an interesting challenge, and I enjoyed doing that. So I had a ton of fun with the show choir, and I did really well with it, but it was super comfortable for me. And it ended up being that I felt like my next year of high school, my senior year, I had to close with a bang, and I had to really challenge myself academically. Because I love bass, I loved doing that. But I don't know if it was 100% what I wanted to dedicate my life to. So for junior year, dance numbers, there was more dance numbers this year than any other year in high school. Show choir is the place to be if you like dance numbers. Comical whimsy, not a ton. There was a lot of heady stuff, a lot of thinking about things. The mullet is an F because we cut my hair, it's gone. It's dead now. Snarky friends, the friends you make through high school, they'll carry on throughout time. So, closest high school movie analogy, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That's my movie for junior year. And then finally in senior year. So this year I kind of decided that I wanted to really challenge myself academically, really explore stuff. I don't know if a midlife crisis is the best way to think about it, but I had like a mid-high school crisis. So this year I ended up taking 2 AP classes. Over the summer I went and got a job, which was a big thing for me, not because of the work necessarily, but because I didn't know anybody there. For my internships, I had coordinated through Miss Woods, who's a fantastic internship coordinator, and then kind of worked with references and connections to get to places that I wanted to be and to do things that I wanted to. But me getting my job was kind of just go on Craigslist, find somewhere that's hiring, turn in an application, and that was I think a big cold challenge for me. So I'm glad that I ended up overcoming that. So we had to balance a job, an internship, 2 AP classes with applying for college, preparing for the future, figuring out what it is that you want to do. So I had AP Biology and AP Literature. And this year I just ended up falling in love with biology. I really enjoyed the field of biology. I enjoyed the class a ton. I looked back on my previous science classes. Chemistry was rough, but I definitely felt a sense of satisfaction from overcoming those challenges. I really enjoyed biotech. I really enjoyed medical biology in freshman year. That of it that I can remember. But I ended up really loving the field and also not limiting myself and thinking that this wasn't something that I could do. So I apply for colleges specifically for UCSD, and you just kind of hope for the best. So with this year, I really feel like it was, for me, about working hard and about challenging myself in ways that I hadn't before. And I continue playing music, but for me, music definitely, I think, works better as like a backseat kind of thing. I think for me, music is a great method of relieving stress and like collaborating with other people. Like it's a ton of fun to just jam with your friends, like me and Savelli in the band. We would do that all the time. And I think that for me is a great supplementary part of my life, but maybe not where I want to spend all of my time. So I think it's super important to learn where your hobbies fit in and kind of what parts of your life you want to focus on. So that's definitely what senior year was about for me. So, good news, I ended up getting accepted to UCSD. Woo! My accepted major was human biology, but that's more of a pre-med track, which I'm not super interested in, so my planned major is microbiology, so that I can eventually go into research. There's a lot of benefits to going to UCSD. One, it's a super prestigious university, not to toot my own horn or anything, but toot toot. So I also get to stay in my hometown, and I love it here in San Diego. It's awesome, the weather's great. I get to keep working over the summer so I can have a little extra cash in my pocket. And we also have the Chancellor's Associates program with a partnership between our school and UCSD, which is a pretty hefty scholarship for the remainder of my years at UCSD. So it's definitely helpful. And this is pretty much like my number one option and my number one choice and what I'm eventually going with. So, overall grade for senior year, there was no dance numbers, there was no mullet, but I just want to mention that like the friends and the situations and the fun that you get into in high school definitely in senior year picks up a lot because you're kind of done with the SATs and you're done with a lot of this complicated stuff. I was not super smart and I did all of my hard stuff in senior year, but I still think that it's a time where there's a lot of fun and a lot of growth with this group of people who you've known for 3 or 4 years. So I had a lot of fun this year. Closest high school movie is Back to the Future because it's the best movie about high school and this is my best year of high school. So, plans for the future. So I plan to become a microbiologist working in research and development. Not super into like the medical side of things, but I really am interested in research and figuring out like new solutions to problems. So to do that, I'm going to use my experience as a dishwasher this summer. So, fun fact, 70% of undergraduate positions in research labs are washing glassware. That's how you get in on the ground floor in a research lab. That's the working in the mailroom of science. And now I have experience. So, people say, oh, why are you spending all your time washing dishes this summer? It's because it's for my career. So, we're going to leverage my dishwashing experience, learn, go to school, do a bachelor's to master's program, which is an accelerated program at UCSD that takes you 5 years to get your master's degree, and then from there we'll be applying to grad school, maybe take a gap, depending on how things are going. Yeah, the plan is to just work in microbiology, get as much experience as I can, as much exposure as I can, and end up studying fungus, slime molds, lichens, pretty much any of these kind of organisms. I find them super interesting. Lichens can cling to rocks and eat rocks, and as somebody who likes to climb rocks, I think that I admire that a lot. So that's the kind of stuff I want to study and maybe eventually work on for my PhD. And after working in my field for a ton of years, I want to settle down at a university that's still willing to enact tenure, and then end up teaching people, teaching the new generation of little me's. And then I want to retire once I'm around 70 and build model boats. That's my plan. I love boats, and I love models, so this works out fantastically. So overall grade for the high school experience, we got different categories this time, just about all of the things that you learn about in high school. You learn how to be a good friend, you learn how to dedicate yourself to other people and tasks, you learn about yourself and you grow as a person. All of these, A+. Overall movie for all of high school is The Shawshank Redemption. Fear can hold you prisoner, but hope can set you free. That's kind of my thesis statement for high school. So overall, did movies prepare me for this experience? No, they didn't. However, I still had a great time along the way. So, thank you for attending my POL, and hope you have a great day.